Welcome on in, belly up, have a seat, grab a drink as we talk some Wingman Fantasy Football. Welcome on into another edition of Wingman Fantasy Football, the league podcast. I'm your host, Michael Furley, and as always, I'd like to thank all of you, or any of you who may be watching or listening to today's show. It is Monday, December 1st. This is episode 204, and it's about time we get into our Week 13's two-point conversation. And as always, it's my great pleasure, my esteemed privilege to welcome back to the bar Mr. Bernie, a.k.a. Team B.
I'm Cuban B.
Yes, Cuban B.
How you doing today, Bernie?
I'm really good before halftime is over and the game starts back.
You're gonna let these guys creep in from the lower seeds here. You're making yourself have to sweat on Week 14 here for no reason whatsoever.
It was not my fault. Amon-Ra should not be blocking in that situation.
I agree. I hate when wide receivers block in a crowd early in the game. All right, guys, in this show, we're going to go over some player news. We'll go through the studs and duds for Week 13. We'll also settle into a nice Week 13's two-point conversation where we go through all the coaching errors and getting our star wide receivers hurt in the first quarter of Thanksgiving Day games. And then we'll check in on some early waiver wire targets. But before we do any of that, I'd like to make sure that everybody is in the room.
Wingmen assemble!
All right, now that everyone is here, let's get into some news and notes. Starting off, we've already teased it a bit. Amon-Ra St. Brown was forced out of the game on Thanksgiving very early in the game with what they're calling a low-grade ankle sprain, which means he could have come back in. It could have helped out some fantasy managers out there. Nonetheless, with the longer week and a half to recover here since they had the Thursday game, at this point, expectations are he's not going to miss any time, although we're going to have to just double check those practice reports to see how that goes later into the Week 14. Brian Thomas Jr. returned to the Jacksonville lineup after a multi-week absence, as did Bucky Irving, return to action after a 7-week absence in a huge game for the Tampa Bay Bucks against the Arizona Cardinals. And Darren Waller was activated. He returned to the lineup today for the Miami Dolphins in their game against the New Orleans Saints. Now for some players who were knocked out early on Sunday. Parker Washington was knocked out of the game with a hip injury. Dylan Sampson was unable to finish the game with a calf injury. Marvin Harrison Jr., who returned this week after a 2-game absence due to his appendectomy surgery. However, he was forced from this week's game with a heel injury. Aaron Jones appeared to aggravate his shoulder injury in a disastrous game against the Seattle Seahawks on Sunday. Justin Herbert suffered a fractured left hand and will undergo surgery later today on December 1st. His Week 14 availability at this point is unknown. Shedeur Sanders has already been named the starter for Cleveland going into Week 14, and Terry McLaurin made his way back onto the field on the Sunday night game for the Commanders after missing the last 3 weeks and 7 of the last 8. All right, I know you're going to have some thoughts on Amon-Ra St. Brown, but that other than that, what do you have to say on these players that some guys got back into the lineup and some guys left a little early today?
Yeah, Amon-Ra, that's a tough one. It might cost me this week as far as a victory goes. Jameson Williams, he hauled in 7 catches for $144. So, he's going to be the tight end one, the wide receiver one here. So fire him up if the Sun God stays sidelined, especially with Laporta also being sidelined. Brian Thomas Jr., the second-year wideout, he just had 2 catches for 28 yards on 3 targets. So he's going to be inefficient. I think that's just the way it's going to be for the rest of the year. Bucky Irving, he really exploded back on the scene here with 17 carries and 61 yards. So immediately reclaiming that lead role, so that puts a hindrance on Rachaad White and Sean Tucker. But Rachaad White, had a big touchdown called back.
Yep, I saw that. I saw that.
Holding.
Yep.
So it could have been a big day just in general for Tampa Bay running backs. Darren Waller, red zone weapon, is back. He only had 2 catches though for 47 yards, but he's going to be a touchdown dependent fantasy player here. Parker Washington, I don't know, nothing really. Jacoby Myers, that's the guy you want on this team here. Brian Thomas Jr. obviously will get a little bit of more of a bump, but like I just said, I think Jacoby Myers is going to be the guy. Dylan Sampson, Quinshon Judkins, full workload. Marvin Harrison Jr., Michael Wilson is going to command a heavier workload here. Aaron Jones, Jordan Mason, took over for a little bit, but it was just a bad game all around there. Justin Herbert, he looked good with what he had to work with his glove on his hand and stuff. So I'm not too worried about that situation, but we'll see after if the surgery thing here, what his week 14 status will be. What else? Shador Sanders. I don't know. We'll get into that later.
Okay.
And Terry McLaurin. Without Jaden Daniels there, I'm not sure. I haven't watched any of this game yet, so we'll see what happens.
All right, guys. Very good. Very good. All right. Now it is time to get into this week's studs and duds.
Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose.
Wingman Fantasy Football Studs and Duds.
All right, Bernie, why don't you start us off with some of our studs for week 13?
All right. We got starting off here with two quarterbacks, 2 wide receivers, but none of them line up. Patrick Mahomes, 29.44 fantasy points for Pat, 261 passing yards, 30 rushing yards, and 4 passing touchdowns, and they still couldn't get it done. Jordan Love, 25.76 fantasy points, 234 passing yards, 5 rushing yards, and also 4 passing touchdowns, and he did get it done. Jameson Williams, 23.9 fantasy points, 144 receiving yards, 7 receptions, and 1 touchdown. CeeDee Lamb, 20.7 fantasy points for CeeDee, 112 receiving yards, 7 receptions, and 1 touchdown. CeeDee could do it even with Pickens on the field. Jameson really benefited without having St. Brown on the field.
Yeah, he completely was the main focal point in the passing game there once he went down. And like I said, it was pretty early, so we had all the game to get all that work. Moving on here, we had Brock Austin Bowers.
Yeah, baby. Yeah.
Came in with only a couple of 4 catches, but 2 of them were in the end zone. So he had 63 yards, 4 receptions, and 2 touchdowns, including an amazing low one-handed grab that he snatched off the turf. I don't know how he did that one. DeAndre Swift was awesome, and he wasn't the only one in the game against the Eagles for the Bears in the running attack. But DeAndre Swift had 20.3 points. He got there with 138 total yards, 1 reception. He got in the end zone once. And my man, Kamani Vidal-Sassoon came through with 20.2 points on 137 total yards, 1 reception, and he got in the end zone once. And Adonai Mitchell just needed a fresh start and a rainy day in New York to have his best game of the year at 20.2 points on 102 receiving yards on 8 receptions, and he got in the end zone once.
Yeah, and you know who hasn't been on this list at all because he's out and he's hurt is Mike Evans. And so I'm just going to take his intro and I'm going to put it to this next guy here. Future Hall of Famer Devontae Adams, 19.8 fantasy points, 58 receptions, 58 receiving yards.
Ooh, that'd be a lot of catches.
4 receptions and 2 touchdowns for Devontae. Devon the Man Achan, 19.4 fantasy points, 134 rushing yards, and 1 touchdown. He is Mr. Miami Dolphin at this point. Chuba Hubbard, 19.4 fantasy points, 124 total yards, 30.
That's probably 3, but I'm not sure. 2 or 3 catches.
3 to 2 receptions. Yeah, 3 or 2 receptions here and 1 touchdown for Chuba Hubbard. And Devon Vele, 93 receiving yards on 8 receptions and 1 touchdown. 19.3 fantasy points for Devon.
And Devon Vele could have had a bigger day if he just would have kept 2 feet in bounds. He had like 3 long catches that he just had a shin or the second part of his heel hit the ground before he completed the catch, or he could have had even a bigger day. Moving along here, James Cook We were thinking Derrick Henry was the better side of this trade, but it seems like James Cook was the way to go. They've been actually pretty even since that trade in our league. But James Cook, 19.2 points on 177 total yards and 3 receptions, almost 20 fantasy points without getting in the end zone. And my man Nico Collins at 19 points on 105 total yards, 5 receptions, and his touchdown was a rushing touchdown today. Oh, and Kyle Monangai, our second stud Chicago Bear running back at 19 points even on 130 rushing yards, and he got in the end zone once. And Jacoby Myers, you're at 1 out of 3, but we're going to take credit here. Our start of the week at wide receiver had a huge day today, 18.3 points on 93 total yards, 6 catches, and he got in the end zone as well.
Yes, and Mr. Trey McBride.
Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
He's alive with 18.2 fantasy points, 82 receiving yards, 8 receptions, and 1 touchdown. And Mr. Bam Knight. What are we calling him? Bam Knight Rider? We need a Knight Rider drop in the background there.
That's good. That's good. I can get that sound. No. I'll get it.
17.3 fantasy points for Bam Knight, 98 total yards, 3 receptions, and 1 touchdown. And Riley Patterson, 15.5 points for Riley on 4 field goals, 1 point after. Good job, Riley Patterson. They really needed you. And Jacksonville defense, who I think I was going up against, 13.75 fantasy points for Jacksonville defense, 3 sacks, 2 fumble recoveries, 3 fourth down stops, and 3 points with 188 total yards allowed.
I ran out of space. They allowed only 3 points and only 188 yards of offense from the other side. So they just shut the door down today on Tennessee. We had another defense make this list, the Buffalo defense at 13.25 points. They had 1 sack, 1 interception, 1 fumble recovery that led to a defensive touchdown. They had 1 fourth down stop, and they held the Pittsburgh Steelers to 166 total yards of offense. And we had Brandon Aubrey, a kicker here, at 13.1 points, at 3 field goals made and 2 extra points as well, and a huge victory for the Dallas Cowboys. All right, for every yin, there's a yang. Every stud, there's a dud. Bernie, why don't you start us off with our duds for Week 13?
Ooh, I got a dud. He's sitting on my bench, too. Caleb Williams, 11.46 fantasy points, but that's just because the running game was all they needed. CJ Stroud next up. Ooh, this is a tough one for me to swallow. 11.04 fantasy points. He only needed his defense to show up. Shador Sanders, 10.56 fantasy points, and Tua, 6.68 fantasy points as a winning quarterback. He had nothing to do with the win. All Devon Achane.
This is, I don't know if it's 2 games in a row or 2 of the last 3 weeks where they've won games with him getting under 7 points and then dominating fashion here. Or not dominating, the one was in overtime, but this one, they were dominated this one for most of the game. Cam Ward, I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. I went for it. I was wrong. You shouldn't trust me when I say Cam Ward. He's my new Will Levis. All right, guys. Any Tennessee Titan quarterback should not be a start of the week. At 6.34 points, of course he's a dud this week. I'm only putting Darren Waller on here because he was back at 5.7 points, but he was close to catching a touchdown as well as Tua lofted one just a little too far out the back of the end zone. But Waller did make the catch with his hands, just not with his feet. Saquon Barkley, what is going on? We talked about it in our mailbag last week. The Madden curse is real as I see it. Bernie disagrees, but 5.6 points. Can't argue that he was a dud once again. And Jalen Waddle in a victory. Like we said, the passing game was unnecessary at 5.5 points.
Yes, another one I was going up against, thank goodness, Kenneth Gainwell, 5.5 fantasy points. That offense just couldn't get anything going. Tajay Spears, 5.5 fantasy points. Sam Darnold with the win, 5.12 fantasy points. This game was defense and running for the most part, and kicking, lots of kicking. And Michael Wilson, 5.1 fantasy points.
Yeah, so that's we have 4 of our quarterbacks who were duds this week. All were parts of winning teams, and most of those wins were actually not a couple of them were blowout wins, just to show you that they didn't need the quarterbacks today. All right, moving along here. What's in the box? The mystery box. Don't look in the box. It's Max Brosmer. Oh my gosh, channeling his Will Levis. The second time we've mentioned Will Levis on the show today. What's going on here? At 5.04 points, throwing the ball over his shoulder blindly into the hands of, I swear I was watching this game, I thought it was replays. Interception, 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 every other throw. It was a train wreck for Max Brosmer. Keenan Allen came back off the bye and settled back in where he's been at 5.0 points. And the sabotage part of this trade, Bernie, DK Metcalf at only 4.7 points. And Aaron Rodgers, I thought he left the game for the whole game, but I think he just missed a drive. Nonetheless, he was a dud today at 4.68 points.
Yeah, he came back after he got his fixed man in the corner took care of him. Travis Etienne, 4.6 fantasy points for Travis. Aaron Jones, 4.5 fantasy points for Aaron Jones. He had a really tough fumble, and hurt shoulder on that play. Rashad White could have been more. Damn penalties, 4.4 points for Rashad White. And Colston Loveland, can't have him all the time, bud. 4.3 points for Colston.
Isaiah Pacheco returned to the lineup after a multi-week absence, but it's the Kareem Hunt show in terms of the running game. Isaiah Pacheco only got 4.3 points. Jerry Jeudy, a mainstay on this list here. I should probably even stop putting him on here at 3.9 points, similar to Cooper Kupp at 3.9. And Brian Thomas Jr., his first game back at 3.8. He's another dud here for the Jacksonville Jaguars, despite having a huge day today.
And here's another one of my combination stacks on the dud list. DJ Moore, he's sitting on my bench. 3.7 fantasy points for DJ. Dallas Goedert, 3.7. Darnell Mooney. It's not your fault, Darnell. You just play for Atlanta, and you got Kirk Cousins throwing them the ball. 3.5 for Darnell. And this is a surprise. JSN. Well, I guess if Sam's on this, JSN has got to be on this. 3.3 points for JSN, but they didn't need him, so keep him healthy.
This is the first game he's had under 13 fantasy points all year, but we'll get into it later. But there's a reason why the passing game for Seattle was down this week, and it wasn't due to performance. It was a circumstantial game today by far. Aronde Gaston was not a huge part of the passing and receiving game today for the Chargers, as he only had 3.2 points. Parker Washington, we mentioned, left a little early today at 3.1. Ricky Pearsall, we're going to have to stop putting him on this list. He's not even worthy of being rostered at this point at 2.4. Michael Pittman, however, is definitely a rosterable player at only 1.8 points this week.
Is he a Rasta? I don't think he's a Rasta. He doesn't have dreads. All right. Next, we have up the road to Rome is closed. 1.8 fantasy points for Rome Odunze. Zay not getting any flowers after that performance. 1.6 fantasy points for Zay. Justin Jefferson, 1.4 fantasy points. Not dynamite, JJ. Not dynamite at all. Chimera DK, 1.4 fantasy points. And Alec Ao Minor, rounding out the names I cannot pronounce without trying very hard. 1.1 fantasy point. That's it. Whoa.
Tez Johnson's been up and down, but this time he was down at 1 point. Khalil Shakir only had 1 catch for 1 point. The Cleveland defense only had 1 point. Kansas City, once again, after a goose last week, rebounded with 1 point this week. Chris Boswell. Oh, sorry. You can finish this off, Bernie. Sorry.
Yes, the guy I had on my team, and I gave him up and forgot to pick him back up, and Mike's got him on his team. Mr. Consistent. He's got like 29 or 30 straight field goals or something this year. One fantasy point for Mr. Boswell. Amon-Ra, Goose, Christian Kirk, beat me up, Scotty. I'm done. Goose, Will Reichard, Goose.
We had 3 gooses this week. That's a lot for offensive players. All right, guys, now it's time to get into this week's Mecha Studs.
Mega Studs.
Unfortunately, this week, guys, we didn't have a big list of studs, and we also don't have a big list of mecha studs, but we'll get through it here. Our first and highest scoring player so far is A.J. Brown, pretty much all in the second half. Comeback mode here at 30.2 points. He had 132 receiving yards on 10 catches and got in the end zone twice. And the great Bajan.
Pardon me, would you have any Grey Poupon?
Came through with 27.8 points in a losing effort today for the Falcons. He had 193 total yards with 5 catches, and he got in the end zone once. And oh my, the Seattle defense. I don't even know. I ran out of room to write their stats down. They had so many. 27.5 points for the Seattle defense with 4 sacks, 4 interceptions, 1 fumble recovery, 1 defensive touchdown, 2 fourth down stops. They held the Minnesota Vikings to 0 points. They got the shutout and held them at 162 total yards. We had Rashi Rice continue his dominance. He was the only, well, not the only good thing, but one of the best things this Thanksgiving Day at 25.4 points on 95 total yards. He got there with 8 catches and got in the end zone twice. Dontavian Wicks, we always say he's the best Green Bay wide receiver, no doubt about it. Came through with 25 points on 100 total yards, 6 catches, and he got in the end zone twice. And we had two monster kickers, one on Thursday night and one on Sunday afternoon. Evan McPherson for the Cincinnati Bengals at 24.3 points, 6 field goals, 2 extra points, and 1 kick that was longer than 50 yards. And Jason Myers had 20.3 points on 4 field goals, 2 extra points, and he had 2 kicks, if that's the right, over 50 yards today. Yeah, that's right. So my goodness, it was all about the special teams and defense for Seattle. They have 2 mega studs, their kicker and their defense, and their offense was just watching the disaster from the Minnesota offense today. All right, Bernie, do you have any comments on our studs and duds this week? A little bit shorter on the studs this time around.
No comments. We'll get into it in the recaps, but yeah, it is what it is. We know which defenses we're going to play out for the rest of the year.
Yep. All right, guys. Well, we're going to get into it. It's time to get into this week's 2-point conversation. Oh, sorry.
Is Jack Del Rio going to go for 2 here,
He's
Link?
going for 2.
The Raiders will go for 2 and the probable victory with 47 seconds left.
If you don't make this, you lose. If you make it, you're in a position to win.
Green Fantasy Football's 2-point conversation.
And it's good! Oh my goodness!
All right, guys. Sorry about that. The theme for this weekend's game was cold weather games on Sunday. West teams traveling to the East all fall, and upsets in all of our Thanksgiving and Black Friday games. All right, Bernie, why don't you start us off? Where are we going in this week's 2-point conversation?
Oh, the Lions invited all of America to Thanksgiving dinner. The Packers showed up, ate everything, and left with the silverware. Green Bay 31, Detroit 24. Packers came out aggressive, going for it on 4th down early and often, and converting when it mattered. Jordan Love was dialed in all afternoon, while Micah Parsons and made Jared Goff life's miserable. Detroit, like we said, lost Amon-Ra St. Brown to ankle injury, never found their footing. Every time the Lions tried to claw back, Green Bay had the answer. Packers owned 4th down on both sides of the ball, and they closed it out in the final minutes. So Detroit now 2 games back and staring up at Green Bay, that they've been dominated all year, and the Packers host Chicago next week in the game that could decide the North. So happy Thanksgiving if you're from Wisconsin.
Yeah, so this one, I think the big news going just into the day was that Josh Jacobs made it back onto the field after missing the prior game. He got most of the work here. I mean, it wasn't 100%, but back to his normal workload here. He was kept out of the end zone, so that kind of kept him at bay in terms of his fantasy day, which means I don't know if it's because he was a little banged up or not, or just just the way the game was going. But they do this every 4th game. It seems like they leaned on Jordan Love's arm this time around. He came off a dud last week, had a very good game this week with 4 touchdown passes. So like we mentioned, one of his better games by far. I'm not sure if that's just how the defense is stacked up. On the other side, like you mentioned, the defensive line was really not dominating in that they closed the door completely, but situationally dominant was for the Green Bay Packers, stopping Jahmyr Gibbs and Montgomery, really holding them in check. Neither of those guys got in the end zone, if I recall. I know Gibbs did not. So they didn't shut him down.
Montgomery got in.
He did get in? Okay. That's right. They tried to get him to throw a couple. Yeah, they kept playing with gimmick plays with Montgomery. You're right. But Gibbs, after coming off that 49-point fantasy point game the week prior, kept him at 10 points, and that's a big-time hold. So they just it was kind of, I don't say bend, don't break is not fair because both teams scored. Jameson Williams had a great day, but it seemed like it just seemed like you mentioned, every time Detroit would muster up enough to make it a game, then Green Bay would come right back and score and just extend the lead. And by the end, they won. What was the final score? They won by like 17 points, right? By the end, give or take?
31-24.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't
a 7-point game, but they kept them at bay. It seemed like just arm's reach enough there. And was it LaFleur who went for a big 4th down or a 3rd and 1 late in the game that kind of sealed the clock, I believe, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah. They were pretty aggressive throughout this whole game. So it was definitely Jordan Love's. They rode him this game to make sure that they got the victory.
And honestly, the biggest thing about this is that Detroit's outside looking into the playoffs. That was a big loss for them, as like I said, all these divisional games here. These are 2-for-1s. They're already behind by about a game and a half, give or take. I'm not sure the exact standings, but with that loss today, now they're down either a game and a half or 2.5. And they have an uphill battle as they don't have the tiebreaker with some of these teams here. It's going to be tough sledding for them to get in the playoffs. They were so good last year. They're even good this year, but they're just losing some of these games that they were winning last year.
Yeah, kind of feel like the Detroit Lions right now. Oh, wait, that's because I have Detroit Lions on my team. All right. Next up here, we got two teams desperate for playoff pulse met in Arlington on Thanksgiving, and only one left with a heartbeat. Dallas 31, Kansas City 28. The Cowboys threw a pick on their third snap and were down a touchdown before the crowd finished their first beer. Game over, right? Not even close. Prescott settled in, and Dallas's defense found its footing, refusing to let Mahomes run away with it. The Chiefs lost 3 starting offensive linemen to injury as the game wore on. The Cowboys took full advantage when Kansas City needed one more stop in the final minutes. They couldn't get it. Dallas closed the door, kept Mahomes glued to the sideline. 5 days after beating the reigning Super Bowl champs in Philly, the Cowboys just took down the runner-up. So Kansas City drops to 500 and now needs to win out just to sniff the playoffs. Dallas rides a 3-game streak into Detroit next week. So the dynasty is wobbling and the Cowboys are rolling.
I will say, man, Dallas has been very impressive to me the last month or so. Like we said, they tied Green Bay when they weren't in the groove yet. They now beaten Philadelphia, which doesn't seem as hard as it used to be, but it's still a tough game. And then again, like you said, against Kansas City now. So they've beaten good teams. Their passing game is dynamic with Pickens and CeeDee Lamb. We mentioned CeeDee Lamb as a stud, but it's just who gets the touchdown, who makes it on that top of the list. They're both very combined. They're both getting like 30 fantasy points. It just depends on who scores the touchdown, if not multiples, who has the better day. They're both getting around 90 to 120 yards. Very impressive. They're spreading the ball around. Ferguson is a nice complementary piece. He's not the main piece, but it's nice to have 2 guys on the outside and someone you can count on to leak out from the tight end spot. And Javonte Williams, once again, had a nice touchdown on a short reception there. They got just a nice balance of offense with all those guys led by the passing game and the 2 receivers. Early in the year, it was all Javonte Williams. Now he's just the complementary piece, and that's what he's best suited at. As like we always mentioned, a great blitz pickup blocker, and just can hit the soft spots of the line when they're dedicating their resources to the passing game here. So an impressive win, and honestly, even though they gave up 4 touchdowns, Mahomes played pretty well, but it was I feel like their defensive line has gotten a lot better. And again, it could be, these guys are always practicing out the year. You don't expect them to stay stagnant through the first 3 or 4 weeks, but it could be just getting better with practice and repetition. But they've made a couple moves on that defensive line throughout the year. When they traded away Micah Parsons, they got a defensive tackle. They made the trade with the Jets to get another, I don't know if he's a linebacker, Quentin Williams, or if he's a lineman, but a front 7 guy. And they're shutting down some good players and good teams here. The running game was finally stymied a little bit more by Kansas City. Although Kareem Hunt just has nose for the end zone. He's always going to find his way in there at least once, I think.
Yeah. Quentin Williams had 1 quarterback hit, but the guy there at the top of the list was Jadeveon Clowney. He had 5 solo tackles, 2 sacks, and 2 QB hits. So he was kind of leading that charge there. But you're absolutely right. The Dallas defense is really one that sealed this game off.
Well, even like just part of that, like you said, like I kind of forgot about Clowney overall, but he was the discount replacement for the actual edge rusher part of Micah Parsons. Again, no one's as good as Parsons, but they kind of got 3, good players essentially, not in a straight trade, but they've replaced 1 player in their lineup for 3 good players, and it seems to be more of a balanced attack. And they're playing pretty well. If they can beat Detroit, and Detroit is a wounded animal right now, they're going to get themselves into a strong hold here for a chance to make the playoffs. And who would have thought they're even only either a half game or a game and a half back from leading the division against the Philadelphia Eagles, who are faltering here late in the season. So this is, I don't want to say I'm not a Cowboys fan, but just knowing how much crap they were taking early, I'm kind of proud how they're turning it around here, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And their offense is really good.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Moving out of this game, we're going to Joe Burrow. I can't say that word, all right. Hadn't played since week 2 The Ravens riding a 5-game win streak. Guess which one mattered more? Cincinnati 32, Baltimore 14. Burrow came back from a 9-game absence and brought Jamar Chase with fresh off a suspension with him. The Bengals left points on the field early, but that didn't matter. Baltimore handed it right back. The Ravens coughed up 5 times. Lamar Jackson lost 2 fumbles. Tight end Isaiah Likely had a touchdown ripped out of his hands at the 1-inch line. Every time Baltimore seemed to be ready to take control, the ball hit the turf. Second half wasn't even close. Baltimore drops to 500 and falls out of first in the AFC North. Pittsburgh now holds the top spot with a showdown looming. Cincinnati's still 4-8, but Joe Burrow is back, and that changes everything.
Yeah, so the Bengals are 3-0 in Burrow starts. So there's that. Their defense, we mentioned it last time, they really shut down the New England running game the week prior. And Derrick Henry had a bust-out run to start the game, but they've improved, I think, a little bit in terms of their run defense. I don't know how they're doing it, if it's just luck or circumstance, but they've somehow slowed some teams down. You would have thought it would have been a huge day for Henry. Now, the question I have here for you, this game could have been even a bigger blowout. Cincinnati dominated, especially with those turnovers, like you said. That was a big swing right there where they went from scoring a touchdown to being stopped. But this game could have been even a bigger blowout, as pretty much they were scoring field goals, were the Bengals the entire time. If they could have put some of those in the end zone, this game would have been even a bigger blowout here. Did you notice that after the first drive where Derrick Henry had a couple big runs, including a touchdown, that he missed a lot of action with no report or reason why? Did you happen to notice that?
I did not notice that. What was the reason? I mean,
there was no reason. I was listening on the I was driving back from Thanksgiving, early dinner. So I was listening on the radio, and the announcers on the radio were like, "Where is Derrick Henry?" You just heard Rasheen Ali was getting all the work, and then he was out for it seemed like a whole quarter and a half, and then all this, I'm like, nothing was said. I don't know if he just had a stomach ache. I don't know what's going on because there was no report or anything. And then Henry did come back in later in the game, so it wasn't like he was hurt where he couldn't come back in, but he was not effective. But Ali got most of the work in the second quarter, and they were at best splitting evenly throughout the rest of the game. Rasheen Ali outsnapped Derrick Henry. I don't know what happened. I don't know what's going on. Again, he got back in the game, so I don't think it was an injury or something. And especially because there was no report either way. They're not going to report if someone's got maybe had a tummy ache. I don't know what's going on there. We've seen that with Lamar Jackson, for instance, but maybe Derrick Henry got a piece of that because there was no report, but he did not play his full allotment of snaps. And losing this game, you think they would have leaned on the running game, and it just didn't happen.
Yeah, no, they only had 22 total carries in the running game between the 4 of them, the 3 running backs and Lamar Jackson. So that's definitely not something they were leaning on. But Isaiah Likely, he had his chance. I mean, he had 95 yards. He just needed that touchdown with a couple extra yards there. We knew this was going to be a tight end friendly game. Between both tight ends, though, 9 receptions for just under $150. They were just missing the touchdown there. So Cincinnati's got its weaknesses, and we all know what it is. They just couldn't execute, and Cincinnati's defense didn't look that bad. So.
And with any game, when you get turnovers, give the other team a short field, it's going to be really hard to overcome that.
Yeah. All right. Next up, let's get into Friday now. The Bears walked into the home of the reigning Super Bowl champs and treated them like a doormat. Chicago 24, Philadelphia 15. Chicago ran the ball down Philly's throat all afternoon. Their first game with 200-yard rushers since 1985. I believe that was the Super Bowl year. The Eagles had no answer. The offense went entire quarters without stringing first downs together. And when they finally tried the tush push, Jalen Hurts fumbled it away. The Bears led wire to wire. Philly never had momentum, never looked dangerous, and now has back-to-back losses after collapsing against Dallas last week. Chicago's defense smothered everything, and Ben Johnson ripped his shirt off in the locker room afterwards. That's the vibe in Chicago. The Eagles fall to 8-4 and suddenly look vulnerable. Chicago sits at 9-3 atop the NFC North, with Green Bay coming to town next week. The Bears are for real, and now they get to prove it.
Yeah, honestly, this was just a shellacking. It was a beatdown. Out physicaled the Philadelphia Eagles, which seemed unlikely going in as a prognostication, I guess. all Monangai. It was all DeAndre Swift. There was no need for the passing game, as it was just managing the game from Caleb Williams, and he did fine at that. And then on terms of the other side of the ball, Hurts is losing confidence. Saquon Barkley's getting stuffed. And A.J. Brown is the man. You just throw it to him. He's a tank. This guy is a tank. He caught 10 of 12 targets, got in the end zone twice, and both of them were on, running through guys and just stealing the ball from the air. I don't know if this is going to be something going forward because they lose these games when they're using him, but they're also using him in games that they're already losing. So it's one of those things like run the ball 40 times, you'll win. Well, when we're down by 30 points, we can't run the ball 40 times. One of those type of things. But it's clear A.J. Brown still has it. Just depends how these teams going to use him going forward. But I don't spend too much time on this game. It was a big game in terms of the NFL standings. But honestly, it was just a massive beatdown on the road by the Chicago Bears against the defending champs.
Absolutely. All right. We'll fly out of this game here. Let's
Yep.
go here. 49ers, we flew into Cleveland, braved Lake Erie wind, and made the Browns look like a team playing for draft position. San Francisco 26, Cleveland 8. Brock Purdy needed a bounce back after throwing 3 picks last week, and he got one simply not making any mistakes. The 49ers defense did the rest, forcing 2 turnovers and smothering Shedeur Sanders in his home debut. Cleveland beat themselves before San Francisco even had to. Special team disaster, set up easy points, botched 4th down snaps, killed drives, and the Browns never threatened. It was ugly, cold, and one-sided. San Francisco improves to 9-4 and heads into the bye week with momentum. Cleveland clinches another losing season, and the question around Kevin Stefanski only gets louder. 49ers are still alive, and the Browns are just waiting for April.
All right. I didn't watch too much of this game. I was just doing a box score watching here.
What?
I know. We had the Browns score first in terms of touchdowns. I'm not sure if it was the first score of the game. I think it was. But either way, they were up 8-zip, 8-3, 8-6, something like that. And then
isn't it wait. Isn't it a family tradition for you to watch the Cleveland Browns?
No, not anymore. Not anymore. Anyway, so they got off to a promising start, getting that first touchdown on a nice 40-ish yard pass to Fannin, and then they got the 2-point conversion with Judkins, but that was it. Pardon me. And then you said you have opinions on this, so I don't know how much you watched. How did Shedeur look out there? Everyone wants to know. There wasn't too much there except for that first touchdown pass. Other than that, they were pretty stagnant the rest of the game. And with the short field, it seemed like San Francisco were able to kind of just, tick, 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 and eventually the score was a blowout, but it wasn't like a super dominating performance other than the Cleveland Browns just can't get out of neutral.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. So the Browns have only been looking good because of their defense, and their defense didn't show, a crazy defensive performance today. So the offense needed to do something. Shedeur Sanders he looks like somebody that's just not ready to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. It's just as simple as that. The team is only going to be as good as the coach and the quarterback. And right now they don't have it. So they have good players on their team though. Quinshon Judkins is good, Jerry Jeudy is good. Harold Fannin is even good. So it's one of those things. I don't know too much about the depth of the offensive line, but I'm not going to put the blame on that like I would like Las Vegas's offensive line. Las Vegas offensive line is horrific. So Cleveland, I got to get it together, man. I think you might have to give Dylan Gabriel his start back. He had 1 of 1 today, so he's healthy. He was on the field.
Well, they already declared that Shedeur's starting next week. All right, let's get out of this game. There's other games that are more interesting than this one.
Yeah, the Titans are bad. And the Jaguars made sure everyone remembered that. Jacksonville 25, Tennessee 3. Tennessee actually struck first with a field goal, then promptly fumbled the ensuing kickoff. Jacksonville pounced and never looked back. Trevor Lawrence found the end zone twice before halftime, and the defense suffocated Cam Ward all afternoon. Jacksonville moves to 8-4 and pulls into a tie with Indianapolis atop the AFC South. The two meet next week in a game that actually matters. Tennessee falls to 1-11. At this point, they're just playing for that draft position.
Yeah. So, I was going to start this. Oh, we were talking about it in the preview here. When we went through all those games, how the pecking order. Now, this is going to be the first time that the team is going to have all their receivers since the Jacoby Myers trade. You know what I mean? And then having Brian Thomas back from injury, or at least one of the first times. So I was interested to see how they were going to play out here, and it pretty much went how I thought. I mean, again, it's one game. I'm not saying I'm right overall, but it went how I thought it was going to go in pecking order. Jacoby Myers and Brenton Strange, they're the most reliable guys in the offense. You got Brian Thomas, who's the most explosive, but nonetheless has had a bad year, not really extending and catching balls. Some of that's due to Trevor Lawrence's accuracy issues, and then Parker Washington's kind of your spark plug in the middle. And those top two guys were the best two guys by far. They both catching touchdowns, and Jacoby Myers and Brenton Strange, and Parker Washington and Brian Thomas Jr. were afterthoughts in this one. And it wasn't because they relied on the running game here. I think Bashal Tutin might have gotten the end zone, but Etienne was stuffed. This was one of the first times in a while he's been slowed down here. So actually, I'm going to give it to you, Bernie. Unless I missed something here, I think this was one of Trevor Lawrence's best games. He's had better fantasy days, but in terms of not coupling that with turnovers and huge mistakes. Granted, it was a helpful opponent to do so, but every time I looked up, they were moving the ball and hitting the receivers that they wanted to hit, and finishing off drives for the most part here. Tennessee was dominated. Jacksonville did the dominating.
Yes, for sure. And I will take any sort of credit and praise that I can get. Thank you. All right, moving on. A few weeks ago, the Colts looked like they had the AFC South locked up. Not anymore. Houston 20, Indianapolis 16. CJ Stroud returned from a concussion, and the Texans' top-ranked defense did the rest. Houston controlled the clock. They kept Jonathan Taylor in check and made the Colts offense look like they were stuck in the mud all afternoon. Indianapolis had chances late but couldn't finish. A stuffed tush push gave the Colts life, but with under 5 minutes left, Daniel Jones couldn't convert on fourth down. And that was that here. Houston's now won 4 straight, and the division race is officially a dogfight. The Colts and the Jaguars sit tied at 8-4. Houston lurks one game back at 7-5 with a rematch looming in week 18. So the AFC South is up for grabs, and the Texans just made it known that they're in the fight.
They sneakily, guys, and if you're not paying attention, Houston defense, stat-wise, is one of the greatest defenses in the history of the NFL. I'm not even joking. In terms of yards allowed and points allowed and all the metrics like that, they are just amazing. And they're using that defense now to win. Stroud wasn't great. He started off a little shaky in his first game back, overthrowing some players, getting an interception here. But he did target Nico Collins as much as they could, being that they were relying on the running game here. Woody Marks got a little banged up, but did return. Nick Chubb got in the end zone. They were just using the running game. This is the most I've seen Nick Chubb play in a long time between the two, but it was Marks early. I don't know how much of that was due to Marks being banged up, but they did split in the second half, and they actually used the fact that the running game was working as much as the Texans can have the running game working, and used that to get Nico Collins on an end around for a touchdown, using the linebackers to suck up to the fake, up the middle handoff, and letting the receiver go around the edge, and then pile driving through the last two guys, following a big time block. Not sure which tight end or receiver was out there, but it looked like they were going to be a pile at the 7-yard line, and all of a sudden that one blocker cleared out those last two guys pretty nicely for Nico Collins. This game was close the whole way, slowly answering each other back and forth, as it seemed like Houston got up by 7 points, and then a Tyler Warren touchdown, I believe, tied it up at 13, and then we had a couple field goal. You could tell me how the scoring went, but it was 20-13, right? Is that what it was, or 2016?
2016, yeah. It was Houston field goal, and then I'm sorry, it was a Houston field goal first off, and then Indianapolis field goal. So it was a back and forth, and then
it was kind of slow scoring how they did it, but it was always in that range there. I saw the one play where they had I believe it was a Tyler Warren, like, I don't want to say tight end sneak. They were going to do a direct snap under the center and they fumbled it there. And then you had so I guess it was Jonathan Taylor who went to jump on the ball, and Daniel Jones went to kind of push on the pile a little bit, and he looked uncomfortable pushing on that leg. When I saw it, I'm like, this is not going to end well. He kind of came up a little flat-footed to me. I don't know if he was like trying to take some pressure off. He's playing through that broken leg, guys. Again, I consider him a confidence player. When things are rolling, he does well. When things go bad, he kind of crashes and burns. Not saying his season's going to end up on fire here, but they have some tough matchups. First of all, that makes it hard to begin with, and I could see him losing some luster going in here as he's losing confidence. And I think, like I said, he's a confidence play. Is Daniel Jones?
Yeah, I disagree. but
Okay.
it's Daniel Jones, so that's fine. No, CJ Stroud looked good. They looked efficient. Nico Collins looked really good. I agree with you there. I think the problem with Indianapolis is and the Houston defense. You're absolutely right. They are outstanding, top notch NFL historic defense, right? But Daniel Jones and Jonathan Taylor, this is the issue here. If Jonathan Taylor can't get in the end zone, then they're not going to win it. They're not going to win a football game. They need him to get first, second quarter touchdown run. That's how they set their tone. If they can't manage that, then it's an uphill fight. And I don't think that's all on Daniel Jones. I think that has a lot to do with the team. I think this is more of a team aspect with Jonathan Taylor as the lead, not necessarily the quarterback.
And in all fairness, the
But
Colts have played some of the toughest defense in the league the last couple weeks, and I don't think it's going to let up, if I'm not mistaken, and for the rest of the year here.
Yeah, and this was a good game. It wasn't a bad game. So the better team just happened to win this game at this week. So all right, let's go here. The Saints nearly pulled off the impossible. Nearly. Miami 21, New Orleans 17. Miami jumped out to a 16-0 halftime lead while New Orleans looked lifeless without Alvin Kamara. Devon Achane gashed the Saints early, and Tyler Shuck couldn't get anything going. Then the second half happened. Shuck woke up, found Chris Olave, Devon Vele for touchdowns, and suddenly it was a game. The Saints scored late to make it 19-17, but Minka Fitzpatrick picked off a 2-point try and returned it the other way. So New Orleans recovered the onside kick anyway. They got stuffed at 4th and 1. That's the ball game. Miami won its third straight and climbs to 5-7. New Orleans drops to 2-10. The Dolphins are somehow still alive. You want to explain this one? What are we doing here?
Just an easy part of their schedule, and they're taking advantage of it, and they're riding Devon Achane all the way. He is the man. And he didn't have any catches today. It was all on the ground. He had 130 some odd yards with a touchdown. Tua's not great, obviously, and he's actually playing worse and worse, but he's realizing just get it to number 28. Devon is awesome. The Miami defense and or the New Orleans offense was the combination was, like you said, they just shut them down. Miami shut down New Orleans the first half, and then it completely switched until they bowed up on those that last drive, starting from when they realized this game was getting close and they intercepted that 2-point conversion you mentioned. And then awful play on the onside kick. It was a bad call by the refs, for one. And two, Jalen, I don't blame the up men. Their job is to block that front line of guys coming up to crash. And Waddle's supposed to jump in there and take it. Waddle was like 6 yards away from that ball. I don't know what he was doing. That's on Waddle. If you watch that replay of that recovered onside kick by the New Orleans Saints there, it's not that important to go watch. But nonetheless, I was very disappointed. He's the hands guy there, and the play was set up for him to go get it, and he's like, whatever. And the other Vele, who caught the touchdown to get it close, also recovered the onside kick. They escaped once again to the Miami Dolphins in a closer game than it should have been against a bad opponent. But like you said, 3 games in a row, 4 out of 5 victories here. They are in the hunt, as they say, with a chance to make the playoffs. Really nothing else to talk about here, except one more thing. I guess Devin Neal. I was curious how he would look here because I haven't had a great scouting record on Devin Neal. He was getting stopped early in the game, like just the way the game was going. But as the game went on, he looked pretty good, catching some of those screen passes. I don't know how many yards he finished with, about 65 yards overall, give or take. Nothing spectacular, as once they were down, they were throwing the ball downfield to Olave and Vele. But I thought he looked decent, not great. I thought he looked as good as like a Kamani Vidal, for example, just on a worse team. So I wouldn't expect big blow-up games for Devin Neal if you're desperate, but I also think he's not like incapable of having decent days if the script is in their favor.
Yeah, he rushed 14 for 47, and then he caught 3 for 22. So it was spread out a little bit, but yeah, it was a tough day just to be on that offense. So yeah, like you said, nothing else to say here.
Yep.
Let's get it. All right, here we go. How about this? We got 2 teams that are going nowhere, and they met in the Meadowlands. Only one remembered how to finish it, though. New York Jets 27, Atlanta 24. This one had everything. Muffed punts, missed field goals, and 83-yard kickoff return. The whole lot of ugly football. Bijan Robinson gashed the Jets for over 150 scrimmage yards, and Atlanta led late, but their special teams kept giving New York life. Jets tied it on a Tyrod Taylor touchdown run with under 2 minutes left and then forced 3 and out. Taylor found Adonai Mitchell. to move into field goal range. Nick Folk, 41 years old here, drilled a 56-yarder as time expired. Atlanta falls to 4-8 and now has lost 6 out of 7. I don't know what's going on there. Their playoff hopes are on life support, and their special teams might be the worst in football. Jets improved to 3-9, and just kissed the number one draft pick spot away. Goodbye. Bye.
I will say, you mentioned the Atlanta Falcons offense, especially Bijan Robinson was gashing. They were the better offense today. The game was close all game, and I started looking at stats, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they have like 400 yards, not exactly, about 380 yards for the Falcons, while the Jets had like 130 yards at one point, and that's when it was late into the third quarter, if not early in the fourth. I was like, how's this game close with this type of thing here, this type of yard discrepancy? It seemed like, though, with Tyrod Taylor, they just are a little better situationally. They don't have the ceiling on offense they have with Fields, but they don't make the mistakes. They don't go backwards. And his big plays were all situational. They got him that touchdown you mentioned to tie it, and they got him into field goal range. And that kick was the funniest kick I've ever seen. That thing got no higher than 15 feet in the air. I'm like, oh, he shanked it. He just knew he didn't have the enough leg to go high and up and down. He just kicked a line drive that went right over the left corner, inside the left upright, inside the left upright, and over the crossbar on that left side. I thought he shanked it, and that thing just went a line drive right through the bottom left corner. Big time kick. I kind of called it here a little bit, as we've seen Atlanta, even when they get to good starts, seem to not be able to put the foot on the gas and and just finish the games. They let other teams finish the games, and it's just a matter if they survive or not. They did not survive today. A good win for the Jets. They're getting some better vibes going there. I think they've won 2 of their last 3 games or something like that. So, and I know you're in Atlanta, but being that their season's already a dumpster fire, I'm kind of more rooting for the underdogs in this case. And it was good. I thought it was a good win for the Jets.
Yeah, I won't say those words because
Right,
nobody says those about that
Yep.
words about the Jets. Yeah, but yeah, it was a good game to watch, but like it was a good game not for the good reasons. Like you're absolutely right. Atlanta should have dominated the scoreboard here. They just couldn't finish. So John Mechie, he looked like he was doing a little something as well. Adonai Mitchell, like we talked about. But here's a big surprise. Waddle away if you're listening. Kyle Pitts Sr. 7 receptions for 82 yards, but he had 8 targets. He was leading target for Kirk Cousins. Go pick him up. All right, moving on. The Bucks were spiraling. 3 straight losses. Their NFC South lead slipping away. Then Bucky Irving had a 300-pound tackle saved their season. Tampa Bay 20, Arizona 17. Baker Mayfield gutted it out with a bad shoulder. Bucky Irving returned after 7 games to spark the ground game, but the play of the day belonged to left tackle Tristan Wirfs, who caught a touchdown pass on a trick play for his first career reception. Welcome to the end zone, big man. Arizona, they did make it interesting behind Trey McBride, who I was going up against on my fantasy team matchup, but Tampa's defense came up with 2 fourth-down stops in the final quarter to slam the door. Tampa stays atop the NFC North at 7-5. Arizona falls to 3-9. The Bucks needed this one, and they got it. Ugly, but they got it anyway.
Yeah, it was a little slow going there in terms of just the way that an explosiveness for both teams to start the game with. I was surprised how much they used Bucky Irving. I was a little more cautious, thinking they might use Sean Tucker more. I don't know how many carries Sean Tucker had, but I know he had 0 fantasy points. So if he got 1 or 2 carries, he didn't get any yards. They sprinkled in Rashad. Let's go ahead. 2 carries. There you go. Rashad White was involved early, but like I said, they said they were going to play all 3 and go with the hot hand. Before I get to the hot hand part, Rashad White almost scored that touchdown. He got down to the 1 or 2 yard line on I think it was a screen pass that ended up being that Wirfs touchdown drive. You mentioned another play got called back as well. But once they got going here and they had the early lead, even though it was small, they leaned on Bucky Irving, who, like I said, became the hot hand. And they trusted him, and he was very good today. I think he got in the end zone as well. Not a huge day, but considering the type of game it was and the fact they needed to win and slow this game down, it was a very good effort coming off the long absence here for Bucky Irving. For those who put him in their lineups, you guys were rewarded. I don't think I could have had the courage, but congratulations to you guys who made the decision to put him in there. And like I said, just a big win for the Bucks, who had been spiraling, like you said, a little bit here, and with. Well, we'll get into it later, but they're going to need this win to keep up with another team in their division here, as they are not the only team with a winning record in the AFC and the NFC South.
That is right. All right. Next up, we have the Rams came in as the NFC's top team with a 6-game win streak. They left Charlotte wondering what in the world just happened. Carolina 31, Los Angeles 28. Matthew Stafford hadn't thrown a pick since week 3. He threw 2 in the first quarter, including a pick 6. He added a fumble just for good measure. Bryce Young, meanwhile, played the game of his life, dropping 2 touchdown bombs on 4th downs and leading an offense that didn't turn the ball over once. The Rams clawed back, had a chance to tie it late, but Derek Brown strip sacked Stafford with under 3 minutes left. Carolina converted 3rd down to seal it, and the upset was complete. Los Angeles falls to 9-3 and loses its grip on the NFC's top spot. Carolina improves to 7-6 and heads into a bye week, very much alive in the NFC South, like you were saying. Bryce Young just made a statement. The Panthers aren't going anywhere.
Yeah, the Rams got off to the stronger of the 2 starts offensively, but those turnovers really kept the Carolina in the game there. I think it was 14-7, and the only touchdown was that pick 6 by Carolina. So Matt Stafford had 3 touchdown passes in the first early part of the first half, 2 of them to his own team, 1 to the other team, and that really kept the Carolina Panthers alive. Chuba Hubbard got a lot more work than he's been getting, including I forget what he finished with. Did he make our stud list this week? But he had
17 for 83.
But he had a touchdown as well, a nice touchdown. And you mentioned it was just the clutch plays today by Bryce Young. That pass to Tedero McMillan was perfect, right over the shoulder, caught him on stride as he was able to run in the last 18 yards or so. And it was just clutch plays at the end, and LA Rams not taking advantage of taking care of the ball. If they would have taken care of the ball, they could have probably run away with this one. I think Kyron Williams left the game briefly with an injury, but he did return. So just keep that in mind there. And while he was out, Blake Corum had a good chunk of the middle part of the game, getting a nice touchdown run. So there was some work there for Corum while Kyron was out. But again, he did return. But just it came down to clutch plays and actually pretty good situational defense and offense for the Carolina Panthers to really a big upset here. But again, these West Coast teams and these colder weather games going east, there's always a chance for these games to be a little closer than you would expect.
Absolutely. Carolina Panthers, this was just the battle of turnovers at this point. The team that didn't make any turnovers won the game. And that's typically what's going to happen.
Yeah.
All right. Next, Sam Darnold. Guess what? He got his revenge. And guess what the Vikings got? Nothing. Seattle 26, Minnesota 0. With J.J. McCarthy out due to a concussion, rookie Max Brosmer made his first NFL start, and it was a nightmare. 4 interceptions, including a pick 6, and 0 points. Minnesota hadn't been shut out since 2007. Darnold, meanwhile, looked comfortable against his former team. Seattle's defense smothered everything, and the Seahawks controlled the game from start to finish. The Vikings never threatened, never found rhythm, and they never had a chance. Seattle improves to 9-3 and sits tied for the best record in the NFC. Minnesota falls to 4-8, and their season is officially in free fall. The Vikings came in here with questions at quarterback, and they left with no answers.
This, you always, like I said, take the mystery box. We know J.J. McCarthy's bad. Well, this is why J.J. McCarthy's been playing. This guy could not. He was overwhelmed. Let's put it that way. Maybe he can do better if he plays again, but he looked like he was a guy off the street, and it showed. Every time I looked up, it was an interception. It was crazy. Like every third throw was a pick. Most of them were his fault, but not all of them. Justin Jefferson had I don't know what to call it, a drop. It popped off his chest for one of the interceptions there. Jefferson didn't even have a catch till late in the second half, and then the first catch was a -7 yards or so before he caught another one getting a positive yard. He was frustrated, and even what was it? I think on that negative catch he had, like the guy totally threw him in the ground afterwards. So not only did he only have one catch at that point for negative yards, he was getting stepped on by the other team. They were rubbing it in there, and he was having a tough day. He's obviously frustrated. He's one of the best receivers in terms of yards per start of his career in history, and this year has been a train wreck. I guess mostly due to his quarterback play here. I'm not sure. You'd think you'd be able to manufacture getting the ball a little bit more, but nonetheless, Brosmer, it was not the answer, and the offense for the Seahawks didn't have to do too much. They leaned on the running game a little bit. I think Charbonnet got in the end zone, and Kenneth Walker had a decent day, but again, they were just they weren't even trying to get first downs. They were just trying to run the clock out, from the whole second half, just punting it away and then getting the interception on the way back, punting it away, getting an interception on the way back. Tons and tons of field goals for Seattle, as again, they weren't really looking to push the ball. They were just playing the field position and taking the points that were given to them without putting too much stress on the game on the offense.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, there was one guy that was happy to see Brosner on the field, and his name was Shador Sanders.
Okay, very
Oh,
good.
yeah.
All right, what's next?
All right, next next up we have Aaron Rodgers came back from a broken wrist. It didn't matter though. Buffalo ran all over Pittsburgh and walked out with a statement win. Bills 26, Steelers 7. James Cook gashed the Steelers for over 140 yards on the ground, and the Bills set a record for most rushing yards by a visitor at Acrisure Stadium. Pittsburgh had no answer. Rodgers looked uncomfortable, got strip sacked in the third quarter, and briefly left the game. But by then, Buffalo had already taken control. Josh Allen added a rushing touchdown to break Cam Newton's all-time record for quarterbacks. The Steelers' defense, supposedly their strength, got steamrolled. Pittsburgh has now lost 5 of its last 7. Buffalo improves to 8-4 and stays in the AFC hunt. Pittsburgh falls to 6-6 with the Ravens looming next week. So Steelers, they started 4-1 and now they're just figuring out how to stay relevant at this point.
Yeah, I don't want to spend too much time on this game because there really wasn't too much going on here, except it was a big game for these teams who needed wins as they were kind of dwindling down the standings here. Pittsburgh really has not taken advantage of the fact that you had the Baltimore Ravens and Cincinnati Bengals have awful starts to their season here and letting them creep back in. So that's bad news there for the Steelers. I think they scored first, the Steelers did, so they were up, I think, 7-0 or something like that. And then they just stopped doing anything the rest of the way as James Cook was dominating the field of play for time of possession and field position. And then once they realized that Pittsburgh could not score, it was a Josh Allen show with a huge touchdown. That touchdown run you mentioned was not just a quarterback sneak. He called his number. It was a designed run, and it was like a 9-yard run through everybody and finished through like 6 guys at the end to get in the end zone. Wasn't much going on here except they just over time just put their will onto Pittsburgh, and they had no offensive answers today. A good day for the Buffalo defense, and again, struggling for the Pittsburgh offense.
Yep, absolutely. All right, one last game we have here. The Raiders fired their offensive coordinator last week, and it didn't help. Los Angeles Chargers 31, Las Vegas 14. Justin Herbert left briefly with a hand injury in the first quarter, came back wearing a glove, and still carved up the Raiders. He found Quentin Johnson and Ladd McConkey for touchdowns as the Chargers pulled away in the second half. Vegas tied it at halftime thanks to Brock Bowers, but it wasn't as close as that was as close as it got. Geno Smith threw 3 interceptions. Ashton Genty was bottled up again, and the Raiders' 6th straight loss was never really in doubt here. Tupulotu terrorized the pocket all afternoon. Los Angeles improves to 8-4 and stays in the AFC playoff hunt. Las Vegas falls to 2-10 with Pete Carroll's first season looking like a total disaster. The Chargers are rolling. The Raiders are just waiting for it to end.
Yeah, it went exactly how you thought it was going to go. We thought as a home game for the Chargers off a bye week. It was all Kamani Vidal, especially early, had a nice 59-yard run, I believe, down the sideline to get one of the early. I think Quentin Johnson might have scored first, but the one that kind of started to make you realize that this game was going to be controlled completely by the Chargers was that big run by Vidal. Both running backs, Vidal and Patterson, were situationally very good, picking up big third downs to get first downs, picking up first downs on third down to just keep the chains moving. The big story here, though, is I think in the first quarter or maybe early second quarter, Justin Herbert went out with a broken hand. His hand was staying away from his body the entire game. He was playing one-handed. Looked good when he threw the ball when he had opportunities to, but they were really trying to just keep him out of harm's way. And he did a good job of not getting hit, but only a couple more times the rest of the way. The surgery is going to be big. He played through it today, but being the fact that he's going to have surgery, there might be a chance for him missing a week or two. We'll just have to double check that here. So a big win for the Chargers. They just dominated here. The running game was the big part of the game, but he got his touchdowns back to Quentin Johnson and Ladd McConkey, as they are the 2 main guys here. Gadsden's taking a backseat again, and Keenan Allen he's actually lost snaps today to Trey Harris, was on the field a bit more today. So a good win for the Chargers, keeping pace here and staying ahead of the Kansas City Chiefs in that wild card hunt. So a good win overall. And like you said, a dumpster fire as Geno Smith just gets sacked and sacked. Balls get knocked down over and over again.
Yep, for sure. He sacked 5 times, 40 yards. So it was a rough day for Geno. And that's it, bud.
All right, very good, very good. We have a close game on Sunday night. I think it was Denver was up by 3. It was 2017 with only a few minutes left here. Bernie, I don't jinx it. You're still alive, my man. And your
why
game
would you
here.
say that? Why would you say anything?
I know. I didn't say it. I went. All right, let's get into some early waiver wire thoughts and get away from this Sunday night game. We'll comment on it a little more in the waiver wire show later in the week here. All right. Well, do you have? You want me to start off, or you want to go through some of your early waiver wire thoughts at the quarterback position?
However you want to do it. I'm ready if you're. Now you go for it. I'll fill in the gaps.
Okay. I got Tyrod Taylor here. If he's out there, again, not a prolific. Listen, I'll tell you this right now. We have very slim pickings out there. There hasn't been any major injuries except for Justin Herbert, maybe. And even those guys who might play are playing against tough matchups. So just keep that in mind. I got Tyrod Taylor against the Miami Dolphins defense, who has improved, although not overly consistent here. If you're in a jam, that's someone you could pick up. I got Shedeur Sanders on here. He's going to start next week. At least they declared it. They're playing Tennessee. We saw what Trevor Lawrence did today. Tennessee is starting to, I don't say they're quitting, but anyway, nonetheless, Shedeur Sanders out there against Tennessee.
Okay, wait. Stop.
Okay, fair enough.
Cleveland at Tennessee. Right?
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about here. Okay. Yeah. What do you think that score is going to be? Honestly.
16-12.
And how many of those points are going to be scored by the opposing defense?
Oh.
Shedeur Sanders says nobody's picking up Shedeur Sanders. Nobody's picking up Cam Ward. Don't even say Cam Ward next.
These are the guys that are available. That's all I'm saying. These are the guys that are available. I told you it was slim pickings. I prefaced this. All right. Shedeur Sanders versus Tennessee, Cam Ward versus Cleveland, and Trey Lance. If Justin Herbert misses time, but it's against Philadelphia and it's on Monday night. So that is going to be tough to have if you need a quarterback and you're going with Trey Lance. You don't even know before that game goes on whether Justin Herbert might play or not, but Trey Lance might get the start against Philadelphia. Again, slim pickings. Do you want to add anybody and make fun of me anymore? Go ahead. I'm ready for it.
Listen. If your league supports negative points, do not play any of these players. Just leave the spot blank. You might get more points.
Fair enough. All right, moving on to our running backs.
Running backs, yeah.
Yep. I got Chris Rodriguez is clearly the main running back now in Washington, and at least regardless of how much they split, he is the goal line back, scoring a touchdown again once tonight. So it's, I think, touchdowns in 4 of his last 5 games. I have no idea what's going on with Derrick Henry. Like I said, he missed a lot of time without any mention of it. He did come back in, so he didn't miss to the end of the game. But I got Keaton Mitchell, and honestly, they put Rasheen Ali in there as the he got a ton of carries filling in for Derrick Henry, which means Keaton Mitchell is not going to be a main running back if Derrick Henry misses. They're going with a bigger back. So Rasheen Ali might be someone. The Baltimore Ravens are playing Pittsburgh. We saw what James Cook did this week. I forget. Anyway, so we saw what James Cook did this week against that team here. So again, just keep an eye on this. Is about Derrick Henry's availability, and I don't know what that is. And with Dylan Sampson being out this week, Jerome Ford got a little more action in the second half here. Again, if you're desperate, he's the only other guy. Again, a good matchup against Tennessee here. Again, slim pickings, guys. Chris Rodriguez is the top of my list here.
Yeah, I don't really see anything else that I saw out of this week that would make next week seem any viable. Jarrett Patterson, LA Chargers running back, got some fantasy points, but that's nothing to worry, nothing to be concerned about, I think.
Right, and Amari Hampton should be back next week, you would think.
Exactly.
All right, our receivers here, if you haven't picked him up yet, Brenton Strange has been very solid his last 2 games since returning from the IR. They're playing against the Colts next week, if I have that right. I got Keon Coleman here, guys. If you've not been paying attention to the Buffalo receiving room, they've literally been cutting guys left and right, trying to figure out who's going to replace these guys. They've been sitting Keon Coleman. He finally comes back after Curtis Samuel's been put on the IR, and he gets in the end zone. I'm not saying anything here, but if you're looking for the random Buffalo Bills receiver here, especially until Dalton Kincaid comes back, Keon Coleman might be a sneaky play. They're playing against Cincinnati next week. Again, a good matchup. A guy who has potential, but it's Buffalo's passing game. But again, they've been cutting guys left and right, and now they're recycling the guys they threw away earlier in the year, and let's see if these guys might have a chance. And I put Matthew Golden on here just because he's available in our league. Playing against Chicago this week. Again, none of these guys are big-time players. I think Brenton Strange is the most consistent play. Keon Goldman is the best ceiling play, and Matthew Golden is, I don't know, just see what you can get out of a Green Bay wide receiver at this point. Do you have any other receivers that catch your attention or any comments on these guys?
Dontavian Wicks, Adonai Mitchell, Devon Vele.
Yep.
I would take all of them over Keon Coleman.
Fair enough.
Not for talent reason, just for it seems like Keon Coleman isn't ready yet.
Well, I will agree with you there in terms of the Jets offense. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. You're good. That was it.
I was saying in terms of the Jets receivers, they really are just using Adonai Mitchell and John Mechie for the most part here. Mechie's been the more reliable guy, but they've just missed multiple times with some big plays earlier the last couple of weeks with Adonai Mitchell. Today he came through with one. So if they get more in sync, Adonai Mitchell is the bigger athlete, if you will, but Mechie's maybe the safer type of play. Either of those guys, you're right, are viable options against Miami, who's got a banged up secondary, who's been overperforming lately, but you never know. They could have a big time letdown in any particular week. All right, now for some kickers.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
One other guy I just want to mention. If Amon-Ra does miss next week.
Oh yeah, good job, Tesla.
Isaac Tesla. He has scored in prior games, so he's not an unknown. He might be a really what the heck flex big time streamer if you're desperate. Especially we got one more bye week, right?
Yeah. All right, very good. All right, we got and for the kickers here, I got Jake Moody up against Minnesota. We saw what Jason Myers did against that team. Minnesota can't stop a cold right now, so Jake Moody he plays for Washington. In case you're not aware, it's his third team this year. So Jake Moody for Washington against Minnesota. Harrison Mevis for the Rams up against Arizona, and Michael Badgley for the Indianapolis Colts against Jacksonville. Again, there's a lot of kickers out there to choose from, but these guys are all playing inside or in southern. I think they're all playing inside. I could be mistaken here. I don't have where they're playing at, but again, they're all
Mevis, Carlson, and Moody are all playing in domes.
Yep. All right. So there you go. So that's what I'm looking for this time of year is to avoid the elements. Mm-hmm. Do you have any kickers that you want to mention? I know you usually don't, but I want to offer you the opportunity just in case.
Yeah, I'll stay on your theme here. I agree with you 100% with the weather and the time of season. Chad Ryland, Arizona kicker, he'll be playing in a dome next week as well against the Rams.
All right, there's some defenses that kind of catch my attention. Again, slim pickings, guys, slim pickings. If they're out there, I got Washington versus Minnesota. Back-to-back weeks, the highest scoring defense for the week has played against Minnesota. If Washington's available, take the dive. Go for it. And I've got the New York Jets versus the Miami Dolphins. I don't think they can stop that running attack, but again, Tua always has a chance to spiral with a multiple picks. When he throws one, he throws three kind of thing is how it goes. And I got the Tennessee defense against Cleveland if they're out there, mainly because of the lack of offense by Shedeur Sanders. So pick up Shedeur Sanders and start him, and then pick up the Tennessee defense and just see who wins that battle.
Yeah, the only other defense I'd throw out there is Minnesota's defense. I know they just got steamrolled, but their defense didn't look horrible. And they're going up against Washington next week. So I don't know what the status is on Daniels and Mariota yet, but Minnesota defense might be a nice sneaky play to get in there.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for that. I want to thank you guys for joining us once again for another edition of Wingman Fantasy Football, the League podcast. You can find our audio feeds on your favorite podcasting platforms. If you want to know the best way to find us, just put in that search Wingman the League, and we'll come to the top of your search. And while you're there, hit that follow button, give us a 5-star rating, and leave any comments that your heart desires. If you want to see our show, our beautiful faces, our ballroom, and Christmas decorations, you can do that at our YouTube channel at wingmanfantasyfootball.com/YouTube or youtube.com/@wingmanfantasyfootball. When you get over there, guys, do me the favor, hit that like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment, and we'll get you into our next mailbag segment. With that being said, guys, may your glasses be full, your mugs stay frosty,
and may your fantasy team win by 0.04 points this
Why'd
week.
you say anything? All right, we'll see you next time.